There's a number of reasons why a through hike can come to an end. Injury, boredom, maybe just feeling like it's not for you. But another reason people enter through hikes is for finances, just not being financially prepared or planning for the finances, the on-trail finances. We know that we have to pay to get to and from the trailhead. Those are expenses we know. We know there's gear we need to buy before we get out there. But what about the in between? What about the expenses that come up from start to finish? Today, we're going to talk to the creators and co-hosts of the YouTube channel, Sam and Moriah. Sam and Moriah, welcome to Papa Bear Hikes.
Hi.
All right, thank you for having us.
Yeah, excited to be on here.
Now, Sam and Moriah, I found your YouTube channel and I saw the video. It kind of jumped out at me. The new cost of a through hike. And I was just, so I watched it and I was very impressed with the way that you broke down these, as I called them, the in-between expenses.
Mhm.
Anybody preparing through hike knows, okay, I need these items to get on the trail. I need a tent, a sleeping bag, etc. I know I need to pay for my airfare to and from or however I'm getting there. But there's all these other expenses. But before we get into what those expenses are, I'd like it if you could tell our listeners a little bit about yourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Sam, obviously,
And I'm Mariah.
and we're from the East Coast. We're from New Hampshire specifically, so we're no strangers to the long trails that run through this area that everybody knows of. But we always knew that we wanted to do a through hike, and the PCT was kind of the ultimate one. Mariah actually attempted the trail about 5 years ago, and one of the reasons she actually got off was related to finances. So, kind of makes it an even more exciting topic to talk about. Um, but yeah, the stars aligned, and we were able to get out there for the 2022 season. Made the lucky decision to start really early because I don't know if everybody knows what's going on out there now, but the April starters, May starters aren't making it through because of all the fires. So we were really lucky, and yeah, to have a successful through hike. But yeah, we're just we're avid backpackers. We've been doing it for many years, and we spend all of our time outdoors. So we're happy to be here and talking about this stuff.
Well, let me congratulate the two of you. Mariah, why don't you tell us a little bit about you? Sam had told us you attempted a PCT through hike, and this year, as Sam said,
Yeah,
you completed it. That's great.
yeah, it was a really good feeling to finally finish it. That was 2018 when I attempted it, and I made it to Truckee, which is like a little before halfway. And yeah, my finances just weren't in line. There was a lot of stuff that I didn't prepare for, that I'd end up spending money on, and yeah, I was glad to get back out at it and finish it up. It was a really good feeling, especially getting past the point that I had been on, like seeing everything for the first time and having it be new. It was an amazing experience and glad to have it done.
Yeah, it's a beautiful area. I was out there this year. I hiked the Tahoe Rim Trail and
Oh wow,
the Desolation Wilderness which you guys passed through. Just
yeah,
beautiful. It just has me.
it is
I live
gorgeous.
out. I live in the Northeast too, and I want to get back out there and do more hiking out west.
Yeah, we need to see it without the snow. It was still snow covered
Oh,
when we went
yeah.
through Desolation, so we need to get back as well.
Yeah, I don't want to spend a
It
lot of time
was.
on the PCT, but watching your
Yeah,
video, it seems like there
yeah,
was a trade-off. You guys went through the Sierras during this while there was still snow on the ground, but you made it through
tons.
before the wildfires really took over and
Yeah,
it's been forcing, as you said, it's been forcing a lot of people off the trail.
yeah,
Yeah, we didn't even necessarily do that on purpose. It's just when we got our permits, they were the only dates available. So we started the 7th of March. And it turned out to be a really good decision.
Wow, that's great. And for
yeah.
you, Mariah, your second attempt, I want to ask this: what did it feel like when you got there to the Canadian border?
I was like, I don't have to hike it again. The whole time I was like, I'm not doing this a third time. Like, there's no bailing. Like, we've got to make it. And yeah, it was an unreal feeling. It was like bittersweet, because you're kind of sad that through hike is over, but you're just excited to get home and not have to walk every day. So yeah, it was a really good feeling.
Yeah,
Right.
and I mean, it helped with the our mental preparedness for it, which we obviously don't want to get too into on this, but the knowing that it was Mariah's second attempt for the entire trail, I don't think we ever had a conversation of is quitting an option. We never even had the conversation, which is, I think, really important for the mental side of things. If you're stuck on having a successful through hike, is to just never question it.
Right. It's not an option. You just got to keep going.
Yeah.
Now, Moriah, this sounds like from lessons learned. Right? You ended your first through hike for finances, right? You finances for some reason or another weren't lining up for you.
Hmm.
So when you and Sam decided in 2000 for your 2022 hike, you were going to do the PCT. Was that one of the motivators? Or okay, now we're going to have to take a really hard look at the expenses out there.
Yeah, definitely. We recorded everything that we spent, every single town. We wrote down every dollar that we either donated or, spent on food, gear, anything. We definitely like made sure that we are conscious of what our spending was, and that I saved up over double of what I had saved up last through hike. So I made sure that I had plenty of spending money and had a lot of wiggle room.
Mhm. Sam, while you were planning this, I saw you were doing all the pie charts and
Hmm.
spreadsheets and everything. Did you do how much? I should say, how much advanced planning did you do looking into what the expected cost might be? Like you point out in your video, there's the stays in the hotels and the Airbnbs.
Yeah. To be honest, I don't think anything could have prepared me to actually know what we were going to spend. I mentioned in our video about the old golden rule that you hear thrown around about saving up $1,000 to $1,500 a month, and I kind of based it off that. Um, in the planning stage anyways. So when we headed out, we said we're going to log everything and we're going to look at it at a month to month basis. So at the end of March, we're going to add up all of our expenses, see where we're at and how we can adjust, if we can spend more, if we can spend less. And it didn't take very long on the PCT to realize that we weren't going to be doing $1,000 a month. So like I said, not a whole lot of planning ahead of time that was anything beneficial. And that's part of the reasons we made this video. So to give people a tool to know what to expect,
The
especially in
unexpected.
2022 when, inflation's through the roof and everything.
Yeah, there were a lot of unexpected costs. Like again, we hiked through snow and just colder temperatures. So when we got into town, we really wanted to stay inside, be warm, and like be able to recover from that, which we didn't expect to have to spend as much money on hotels and Airbnbs.
Mhm. Is some of those old golden rules or rules of thumb? Another one is, $2 per mile you're going to hike.
Right.
That's all out the window because that stuff was come up with what, 10, maybe 15 or 20 years ago. And a
Hmm.
lot's changed. As
Right.
you said,
Yeah.
inflation, price of everything has gone up over the last 15 to 20 years. So yeah, I mean, this
Hmm.
is really good that you have the new cost, right? What we can expect now, as
Right.
opposed to what we've read in a book that was written how many years ago, or
Hmm.
somebody put
Right.
on a video
Exactly.
how many years ago. That's why this
Exactly.
is so valuable. We
Hmm.
Before we get into the list, I had a through hiker tell me, somebody who's through hiked a couple of times, that when you're planning your trip, if you can't afford to go into town to enjoy those
Hmm.
town experiences, you probably should rethink whether or not you're financially prepared to do this because
Hmm.
those
Absolutely.
town experiences are as much a part. And I know in my own case with the trails I've hiked, that could be as much a
Hmm.
part of your experience as hiking the trail.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I don't think you're going to get a full value through hike without being financially prepared, and being financially prepared includes the cost of town. At least for us, maybe there's some people out there that go out and try to do trails really quickly, and they have different goals. But if you want to get the full experience of a through hike, I think town costs are essential.
Yeah. And it gets to the point where when you're hiking, you get your trail legs and everything, that you're just pretty much hiking from town to the next town to the next town. That's like what you're looking forward to, is the next town. You just got to get
Right.
there. And when you
Yes.
get there, you want to be able to enjoy it, replenish the calories that you lost, replace gear, anything. Towns are very important.
Yeah, I'll admit it. Even this year, I mean, it wasn't a long hike I took, but we went into town one day. We went into South Tahoe, and it was exciting that morning, getting up and saying, "Wow, we're going to stay here
Yeah, it's a
tonight." And
town day.
what do you want to eat when
Yeah.
we get into town?
Oh,
Right.
that's the whole conversation
Yeah.
the whole day before.
Yeah.
Those miles come quick.
Yeah, you'll always hike faster the day you're going into town. You can get like 20 miles done before noon if you really
Yeah.
want to.
Yeah,
Like, couldn't hike that fast if you tried to, unless you're going to town.
yeah, that's right. But there are cases where people just think, I don't have a lot of money, so I'll resupply and then go right back on the trail. And I just don't think that works. I haven't talked to anybody who says that approach worked.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think physically you can, but mentally that's really tough.
Hmm.
Because, when you're on a trail that long, you start to make friends out there. You want to go into town with them. You want to have a slice of
Yeah.
pizza or a drink with them. And
Absolutely.
it was like, well, I
Yeah.
can't because I don't have the money. Mentally, like you
Right.
said, that starts to wear down on you. Physically, you might be capable, but mentally, that
Yeah.
over the course of 5 to 6 months, that can wear you out.
Definitely. You don't make as many friends doing that.
Right. And you're out there to have fun. That's what I tell people.
Yeah. It's a vacation.
Right. Because the truth is, when you're finished, besides you, who really cares that you completed the trail? You do.
No,
Right.
yeah,
Friends
it's a
and
pretty
family.
selfish thing we do.
Right.
Yes.
Your friends and family and loved ones, I'm sure they're happy that you had fun out there and you
Hmm.
enjoyed yourselves, but the accomplishment is yours.
It is.
It is, totally.
Yeah. And
100%.
so, at least I'm speaking for myself personally. Part of that accomplishment is having fun.
Hmm.
Um,
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
You don't want to go home and be like, why did I just waste 6 months of my life? You don't want that.
It's like Sam said, some people, everyone does it for a different reason. Some people just want to do it for the athletic, like as fast as they can do it, just really push themselves. And other people just want to, probably the majority of people just want to have fun and, get away from society for a while and hang out in the woods.
And I think where that's coming from, I'm sorry if that's a lot of background noise right now. But a lot of that comes from, we were in the front of the bubble. So the majority of people that we ran into were actually those people that go into town, resupply, and leave. I mean, we were towards the end of the trail, we were getting passed by people doing 35 miles a day nonstop.
Mhm.
So, we do see it out there. It doesn't look fun. They looked beat down.
Right.
So,
Yeah, they definitely weren't having fun. We were though.
But the two of you went home with more than just saying, I hiked the PCT, right? Now you've
absolutely.
got a lifetime of memories, a lot, the rest of your lives, you have these memories of not just hiking the trail, but the friends you made and what you did off the trail, which goes back to what I said. Having that money to go into town needs to be
It's
budgeted.
important.
Yeah.
It does.
Definitely.
Uh, let's go down the list. And at the top of the list on your YouTube, you start with resupply, the cost of
Yep.
resupplying.
Yep.
Were you surprised at all at the cost? Of course, the price of all our goods, food's gone up.
Hmm.
But did you feel you were prepared when you were going in for that?
Yeah, so out of any of the categories, I think that was the least surprising one. I think we all know that we're going to be resupplying at grocery stores, and whether you're from the East Coast, West Coast, you have a general idea of how much your tuna packets and you know how much the stuff is going to cost you ahead of time, relatively. So I would say that was one of the least shocking numbers, and also one of the most consistent. As you go through the trail, you'll see towards the middle of the trail, that Tahoe area and stuff, you'll see that it's slightly up, but I think that's one of the easier ones to calculate ahead of time, because you know how much you're going to eat every single week pretty quickly, and what you're going to be eating, because you're eating the same food all the time.
Mhm. And you pointed that out, passing the tourist areas. I think we can
Mhm,
expect it's just our expectation should be it's going to cost a
mhm.
little bit more.
Absolutely.
Yeah, $9 for a gallon of milk in Lake Tahoe. We're
Right.
blown away by that. It's so
Yeah.
expensive, everything there.
Yeah. I experienced that this summer. I love the trail, but definitely dip deeper into my wallet when it came to off-trail experiences in the Tahoe
Mhm.
City and South Tahoe area. Definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I think as far as the resupply items go, if you're preparing for a through hike, and I'm assuming a lot of people go out and do a small backpacking trip to plan and to practice for all this. I think just from going out 5 days of hiking can give you a pretty good idea of what you're going to be spending on food. Because, like I said, whether you're buying that food on the East Coast or West Coast, it's not very different. And that number, like I said, to us was probably one of the least shocking and consistent numbers to predict.
Mhm. Now, Moriah, town food. I don't know if Sam did this. I don't know who does the editing, but when he gets into town food, he shows you enjoying a nice hamburger there.
Oh yeah. Can't stay away from it.
I
Yeah,
would
that's
think
something I
that.
was kind of
Go ahead.
surprised at, that the amount that we spent on our resupplies almost mirrored how much we spent on town food, which I thought was pretty surprising. It's like we ate all the calories and everything we could get when we were in town, more than we did on the trail.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very surprising.
And that's a hard one to calculate because you just don't, you really don't know. That's one thing that can change from place to place. Like we said, Tahoe can be expensive, but you might go into a town where your only option might be a more expensive place to eat.
Mhm.
I mean, most of the time you can anticipate a diner or a luncheonette, but yeah,
Mhm.
sometimes you're gonna have to spend a little bit more on that.
Yeah,
Absolutely,
you
yeah.
don't know how much like you need to eat. Like when we got out of the Sierra, we all looked emaciated, just so skinny. Sam like could not get warm when we were out there. So when we got to town, we did not hold back at all. We just ate as much as we possibly could. That's something, it's so hard to foresee that when you're planning your thru hike. You don't know how much you're going to eat, how much your body is going to need to replenish itself.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And the next category you covered was hotels and lodging. And Sam, you pointed this out in your video that that could be just a big difference between hotel and lodging on the AT and the PCT. You don't have those
Mhm.
opportunities to stay at hostels where they're very frequent, especially in the South. You
Mhm.
could pretty much plan to stay at a hostel or well, most of the AT. I think you can plan it to your off day, your in town
Mhm.
experiences to find a hostel or some cheap lodging. That's not the case on the PCT, is it?
It's really not. And it was interesting. The reason that I was able to kind of draw that parallel in that video is right after the PCT, we actually went out and hiked the 100-mile wilderness. And we started our hike at Shaw's, the hiker hostel there. And I was just blown away. I was like, is this really what's along the AT? Is this where people are staying? I mean, we had a private room for four of us, and it was, maybe $60 plus meals, and it was great. And I was like, wow, this is different because on the PCT, I think we stayed in. I know of two to three established like hiker focused hostels. We only stayed in one of them, I believe, and uh yeah, other than that, it was finding budget motels, not nice places really, and the cost of them was outrageous. There was plenty of Motel 6s that we stayed in for 200, $250 a night. Just blown away.
That's a lot for a Motel 6. Yeah.
Yeah, and you want to shower.
Didn't
Yeah.
even have continental breakfast.
You want to shower when you're out there, and I mean, there's tips and tricks to get around it by splitting rooms with other couples, whatever you can do. But it's amazing um, to
Yeah.
look back at that, and there was no way we had planned on spending the money that we did on hotels.
So I want to ask
Options
this.
weren't really there to stay for free in town. Like you either had to buy a hotel for the night or get back on trail, and those were really the only options for a lot of places. So you could save money on not staying on hotels, but you're not going to be staying in towns if you're going to be doing that.
Right. One of the purposes of the town experience is the warm bed and hot shower, the
Oh,
comfortable bed and the
nothing
hot
feels
shower.
better.
I
Yeah.
agree.
Right. It helps you
Yeah.
get back on the trail, a little bit of bounce in your step and motivated
Mhm.
to get started again. When you were doing your budget, like you said, you didn't anticipate it was going to cost that much, but back home before you left for your trail, for your hike, were you looking ahead to say, all right, there's this miscellaneous cost, or there's a chance it can cost more? How did you go about figuring out your pre-hike finances?
Pre-hike finances specifically to hotels.
Well, overall, like
Uh,
hotels, right? Well, yeah,
yeah. So like I said, I really like the pre-hike planning wasn't huge. We just tried to budget about $6,000 a person because we took that golden rule of $1,000 and upped it a little bit and said $6,000 a piece should be good. So honestly, there wasn't too much financial planning from the beginning. and especially not in the hotels category. From Moriah's experience back in 2018, there's actually a lot more hiker set up hostel areas like Hiker Heaven and Casa de Luna and all that stuff, but none of those things exist anymore. COVID kind of wiped them all out. I mean, in my mind, at least, just hearing her stories, I was like, okay, there's going to be hiker hostels along the way, so we'll make sure to make use of those when we can. And as you saw in the video, our supplement for that, we actually ended up trying to make use of trail angel houses and trying to find trail angels to stay with, which YouTube actually helped tremendously with that. We met a lot of great people through YouTube that housed us. And honestly, somebody planning a through hike, if you're not as lucky as we were with this, the cost is probably going to be higher than what we budgeted.
Yeah, and again, when I had hiked before, I started in May, so it was hot out, but the conditions weren't as intense as they were for this through hike. You know, we were in the desert and it was really cold actually, and super windy, and then the Sierra was just snowy, so we wanted to, you know, stay in buildings and get out of the elements for a while. Where before it was like, yeah, you don't really need one. You could just stay outside. But so did not think that we would be staying in hostels and hotels as much.
Right. When the conditions aren't as harsh, sometimes just going into some towns have campgrounds you could stay at. I know I've done that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
could at least take a shower and get a,
churches will let you stay on their front lawn.
Yeah.
Different places have organizations set up. But yeah, you don't want to stay outside where it's freezing.
No. Sorry, we're gonna move.
Now, another unexpected expense that comes up with a lot of hikers, and I think a lot of people I've heard of people just not planning this into their hikes, is gear, replacing gear. And you guys went through that. You'd stayed at that in the Sierras.
Yeah.
Were you in? It sounds like you were a little, maybe you weren't expecting to have to replace a lot of gear going in there.
Right, and I'd say there's two different ways to look at it. One would be replacing gear, and one would be supplementing gear. For the most part, we didn't really have to replace gear in the sense that gear was breaking. But with an early start date on the PCT, we didn't foresee that we would need a real cold weather setup and then a warm weather setup. So our gear was good and most of it lasted for the entire trip. But our experience was more so just needing a supplemental kit of gear, different sleeping bags and sleeping pads and clothing layers and all that stuff.
Yeah, like I went from a 20-degree sleeping bag to a 0-degree that I ended up finishing the trail with. And I wish I had it the whole time. Definitely would have been warmer in the beginning. A lot of people too, if they're not as experienced with backpacking, they'll think that they have all the gear that they need and that they'll be fine. But then when they actually get out there and, living with your gear and using it day to day, they ended up finding that they wanted different things. They'd see what other hikers were using and want to replace that, get the same thing that they had. And I think it's a lot different, like looking at what you're going to be doing and then actually doing it and knowing what gear works for you and what you like and what your preferences are. So it's really like a teaching moment hiking in the trail, and you'll probably want to replace gear, not necessarily because it breaks or anything, just because something might work better for you.
Right. There's the unanticipated, well, I need to supplement my sleeping bag expense. And then there's, well, this backpack that when I purchased it 3 or 4 months ago looked great and felt great, but after carrying it for 2 weeks, I think I see what that person's doing over there. Maybe I want to switch out my sleeping bag or sleeping pad or something because the one I have just isn't working for me and I'm going to be out here a long time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, let's be real. We all know that there is no proper way to prepare for 6 months of hiking. You don't know until you're doing it, and I think it's important to foresee that some of your gear may or may not work, and that's a good number to have worked into your budget is the gear. I don't recall numbers specifically, but I mean, we're looking at it, and that was one of the big three, I think, was gear. That was one of the big costs.
Yeah, gear can add up fast.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's not cheap.
No, and they know out there you find these gear shops very early on in the trail, and they know exactly what they're doing at the beginning of the trail. You get to Julian, and they are selling you on everything because they know there's new hikers out here and they want new stuff. So
Yeah, there was one guy that was trying to sell our friends snowshoes. We were still in Julian, like in the desert.
like you're gonna
he made him second guess himself. He's like, maybe I do need snowshoes. It's like,
Yeah.
not 5 snowshoes, you won't use them.
Yeah, carry those for thousands of miles.
yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people
No.
carried micro spikes and an ice axe from the beginning.
Yeah.
You know, throughout the whole desert. I don't know why. They thought they would need it. They didn't.
Yeah. No, you're not going to need ice spikes and an ice axe in the desert. I've never hiked in the desert, but I feel pretty confident in making that statement.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't need it through the
I mean, there is, just so anybody listening knows, there are mountain ranges in the desert down there. You hit the San Jacintos, and we had our micro spikes sent there. We hiked the San Jacintos for 5 days and sent them home. But no, we don't. You don't have to carry them the entire time.
No.
You're in the desert.
Unless you want your backpack to be heavier.
All right. Take advantage of being able to just mail your gear ahead or mail it home or have somebody
Right.
mail it to you.
Yeah,
Right.
and that was another expense that I didn't
Yeah.
see. Was
I'm sure
the
we'll talk
post.
about that. That's probably the next one on the list.
Probably, yeah. Yeah, the post was very expensive. We were sending things out, sending things to us, all our resupply packages going ahead. I did not think that we would spend as much as we did on the post. So that's definitely something you want to consider. I'm sure some people can get by without using the post office at all, but it's a very good tool to have.
Well, and you're going to end up spending that money either way. I think part of the reason that we didn't plan on the post so much is because Moriah didn't really hit those areas, the Oregon and Washington areas, on her first through hike. And that's where the mailing gets really, really heavy. And you're either going to be sending yourself packages ahead, or you're going to be resupplying at gas stations and spending a fortune on not great food. So that money they're going to get it from you either way.
And again, that's an unanticipated. I've never hiked for more than 3 weeks at a time. And I know a lot of times I've gotten home and said, you know what? I probably didn't need this. And if I was going to be out there a long time, I would have mailed it home.
You would have mailed it home. And then you might have wanted it later on and it would have come back. And
right.
Absolutely.
Right. You brought up micro spikes. You might need them here, not here. But then again, when you get to this place.
Yeah. And it's worth it to not carry the weight, to spend the $10 to send them here and there. But that money does add up. And then not necessarily post offices specifically, but a lot of the places that you send packages to, they charge you a pickup fee because they have a room full of PCT hiker packages and you pay a pickup fee to get your package. So
God bless them. We saw some of the rooms that were filled with all the packages. It looked like a nightmare. Just like boxes on boxes on boxes, just like towers of them everywhere. They're like, hold on, we'll look for yours. Like, oh man, that's so bad. So makes sense that they charge a little fee.
And I stayed at a hostel in South Tahoe this year, and I sent a package there, and they had a little room set up with all shelves and everything in it, and all the but paid a $5 fee, but I think it's worth it because as I had to explain this to my son. There's people that don't make it that far. They send all the resupply packages out. And they resupply by mailing them in advance, but they might not get there. And at the end of the year, they've got to do something with all that. They're paying somebody to deal with that.
Yep. A lot of that stuff ends up in the hiker boxes.
Yeah. Usually it's dated, right? That's why they want you to put on their estimated date of arrival.
Right.
If you're not there by a certain date, right, it goes to the hiker box.
That's another really good resource is hiker boxes. People will send them things that they don't want and they'll just put it in there. But for us, we were so early, all the hiker boxes were virtually empty.
We were the hiker box.
Yeah, we were just ahead of everyone, so we didn't get that benefit.
I was hiking with somebody when I did the long trail. Somebody I'd met along the way. We'd become friends out on the trail. You guys know how that goes.
Yep.
He had left his raincoat behind, and there was rain in the forecast. And he was like, I don't know. I think I might have to go buy myself a new raincoat. And when we were staying at a hostel that night, I said, check the hiker box. You never know. And there was one in there.
Sure enough. It's a great resource. I mean, when we were on the 100-mile wilderness on the AT, there's a couple guys there that were like, they were waiting at the hostel until they could get their resupply from the hiker box. So, there's some people doing it with no money. He's like, I need 4 more ramens in that hiker box and I'm back on the trail. So I mean, there's different ways to do it for sure, but
On 2 occasions, I've watched people who are saying, "Yeah, I'm finished with my hike," and just, like, dumping their resupply into the hiker
oh
box.
yeah,
On
Yeah.
2
oh
occasions,
yeah,
I've seen that.
yeah.
I think that's a big thing that people, they before they even start hiking, they'll send out all of their resupply boxes. And then when they get on the trail and start picking them up, they realize like I've packed too much food or I'm so sick of eating north sides, like I need something. It's so hard to plan ahead like that.
Yeah.
Like I don't understand sending it out.
And I mean, then you're looking at huge posts. We talked to a couple people, and I think if you send resupply boxes for the whole PCT, it's about $1,400 just in post to do every
Wow.
resupply. Isn't that
Wow.
wild?
You might not even want half of it.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
again,
or you might not make it there.
Right.
I've never done more than 3 weeks, but when I did the long trail, I was so tired of brown sugar oatmeal. It was my favorite oatmeal to eat before then.
Right.
I went a number of years. It wasn't until this year at home I even tried it again, but I did not bring it out on my hike this year with me.
Yep.
Uh,
Yeah, I
Yep.
can't even look at it, I'm sure.
yeah. Yeah, and there's a lot of stories of that where people are like 2 or 3 months into their hike and like, "I just can't eat this food anymore. I can't,
Right.
I'm
Or
so
like the
tired
network
of Cliff
variety.
Bars." Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Oh, I couldn't even eat a bar at the end. No bars.
Still can't.
No.
Yeah, variety is the spice of life.
Your last expense you have on there, oh no, there's 2 more I wanna touch on. You have donations, and that's
Yeah.
again, and that's can be overlooked because we have people who charge to help hikers, which is becoming a
Mhm.
big thing on the it's almost being turned into a business on the AT now
Yeah.
with these
Absolutely.
shuttles and the people who help do that. But then there's your real trail angels, the people
Mhm.
who really are out there just donating their time to help hikers and give rides. And I know
Mhm.
myself, I always at least offer something, you know.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
sometimes a lot of times they
Absolutely.
won't take it, but I always like to be prepared to say,
Mhm.
you know, because let's face it, you talk about inflation, price of gas has gone up significantly, and
Mhm.
uh, I at least I think we need to at least be prepared for that. So,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, so just a quick example of those types of situations that you end up in. We were about 80 miles into the trail, just leaving Julian, got to the third gate water cache, is what it's called. And it's just giant water cache in the desert. And we actually were lucky enough to get there when the trail angels were there, filling it back up. And they had driven about 2 hours out of their way in three big pickup trucks filled with water. Gas is $8 a gallon, and they're driving their trucks up this mountain to drop off all of this water to the hikers. And there's a little plastic jar that says tips not needed but appreciated. So, I mean, how are you going to walk away from that water cache and seeing what they're doing without? I mean, I think we left them 20 dollars.
Yeah.
We were just like, this is amazing, and you don't want to be out there and taking and taking and taking and not ever giving back. So I think it is a really important thing to plan into your budget. I mean, when we added up that number, I think I mentioned it in the video, but I was like, I feel like that number should have been more. I feel
mhm,
like,
yes, you
but
did.
I think the reason it wasn't more is because so many people said no, 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 no,
Yeah,
don't
they're
give
just
us.
doing it out of the kindness of their hearts. But it's not cheap. Like those people at the water cache, they were from San Diego. And they were driving, which is probably like 2 hours away from where we were, and just doing it just because they love hikers and they want to help. So yeah, it's really important to help people out because that's the only way they can keep doing it.
Yep. Yeah, there won't be a water cache if nobody's donating, I don't think. Well, there probably will be, unfortunately. They'll probably still do it.
Probably.
But
But
Without that
the
water
number,
cache, it would have been like a 40-mile water carry.
wow, yeah, but eventually there could come a point where it's just like, well, this is costing me a lot of money, and as much as I'd love to help these hikers, it's cost prohibitive. But with the
yeah.
donations, you're at least helping that. They're at
Hmm.
least able to say, well, we divide up this money, whether it's a few people helping out, we can at least put some gas back in our vehicles, cut down the cost a
And
little bit.
and try to find a way to keep it going because they are so important. And this might be a little bit more PCT specific because you said on the AT, it's kind of seeming like people are just making businesses out of this at this point. But you need those water caches on the PCT. Granted, people did it back in the day without them, but they're carrying 9 liters of water to get through these sections. and we don't really have backpacks that can carry that these days.
Right.
So
Yeah, people are also carrying 7 and 8 pound backpacks empty.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Now, your last category was whiskey. And when
Yeah.
I saw whiskey on there, I'll be honest with you, I thought, okay, maybe that's just his miscellaneous, because I know when I do my budget, I have a miscellaneous.
Yeah.
I do a budget, and because I do budget out my trips. I sit there and figure out what it's going to cost. I take the total cost, add anywhere from 10 to 15% to it, and call it miscellaneous. I thought your whiskey was just your miscellaneous cost, but you were really buying
Nope.
whiskey out there.
We were really buying whiskey out there. Whiskey is definitely my luxury item. And it's funny, our first friend that we made on the trail, it was also his. So we had yeah, we worked that into the budget. And that's a very easily avoidable one. But I'm gonna guess that most people, your miscellaneous category, whatever it is, most people have a luxury or a vice or whatever it is, something that you're gonna spend money on that other people might not.
Right.
I think everybody has that thing, whatever that may be. Some
Yeah.
people carry nice coffee on the trail rather than instant coffee, all that stuff. So yeah.
On those cold nights, it sure did help. It was a good motivator.
Yeah, I've been known to bring blackberry brandy with me out on hikes.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
in addition to, and even on day hikes, bring some adult beverages. If anybody's
Yep.
seen some of my YouTubes, my friends and I will enjoy adult beverage when we reach a summit.
Yep. Yeah.
And like I said, everybody's got that thing they like, and right, it
Yep.
just falls into, in your case, whiskey, and mine it could
Yeah.
be whatever,
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. So I mean, it's a category. It's a miscellaneous category, really, whatever that might be for you.
Yeah, when you're out there, you're depriving yourself of so many comforts. Why deprive yourself of a sip of whiskey once in a while?
And it's lightweight.
It gets lighter as you go, that's for sure.
Well, that's the benefit of it, right? It's going to get lighter, and the more you drink, the lighter the pack feels.
Right. It's a good bonding experience, You just take a sip of whiskey on a summit.
Move on. Yep.
Yeah. And sometimes it makes you move a little faster or forget about it. There's a story about me hiking
Absolutely.
down Panther Mountain when we finished our Catskill 35. I don't remember a lot of it, but something had to do with me like belly sliding down this, and I'm being exhausted by the time we got down to the car. So
Yeah.
that was the tequila. We were.
Yep.
Agua Dulce, when we were there, it was really, really hot out. So we decided to night hike. So we just kind of lounged around in Agua Dulce and drank whiskey. And, at first I was like, oh, make sure you hike with me, Sam, so I don't get lost or fall off the mountain or something.
We headed out at 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah, once it got dark, I was feeling a little buzz. There was an 8-mile uphill, and I just cruised it. I lost everyone.
Yeah, Moriah was gone. She was just gone.
It was like rocket fuel. It felt so good, and I just felt amazing. And I got it to the top, and all our friends made it to us, and they're like, "What was that? Why were you going so fast? We couldn't keep up with you." So it can help for sure.
Yes.
Just something to change the mood, whatever it may be.
Mix it up a bit.
But then again, it goes back to what makes it a fun experience for you.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep. You want it to be memorable.
Yeah. I'll start with Moriah on this. Any advice for someone? We have some people that we brought together who we're going to track hiking the PCT in 2023. So I'm going to ask any advice you'd have for someone on the financial end of this who's going out to hike the PCT in 2023.
Yeah, I would definitely, whatever you plan on spending, bring more than that. Maybe a few grand more. It's like we said, you might think that you can get away with not spending money on things, but in the moment you're going to want to. Yeah, just plan ahead, bring extra money. Don't deprive yourself of anything, because again, you won't be happy if you're missing out on experiences or missing out on that cheeseburger that you just really want. You're out there to have fun, and you really want to make sure that you have the fun, because that's what you'll remember in the end, is all the good times, not slogging and being unhappy about stuff.
Yeah, that's great. Great advice there, because like you said, you could tell yourself, I'm going to avoid going in and having pizza and cheeseburgers and drinking some beer or buying some whiskey. But if you don't have the money to do it, that's going to suck after a while.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And if you don't have the money this year, maybe wait till next year and make that your priority. Just save as much as you can so that you can enjoy yourself. Yeah.
Sam, how about you? What advice would you give aspiring PCT through hikers on the financial end of their trip?
Yeah. My biggest advice, and I think this goes for many aspects of the PCT, is if you want to get out there and have a great experience, even if, say, these numbers that we're throwing out, however many $1,000 is out of your budget, but this is your year to hike, get out there and do it and spend the money and enjoy what you hike, because starting the PCT is a gamble in itself. You are not guaranteed to go all the way through. They're learning that this year. So go out there with what you have and have the experience that you want to have. And if that means ending a through hike early, I mean, what the hell? You had a great experience out there. It's really not all about finishing and having connecting footprints, especially on the PCT, where it's just a roll of the dice when you're going out there. I mean, how bummed would you be if you sacrificed your town food and your times in town with friends to go really quickly and save money and penny pinch all the way through just to have the last 500 miles of the trail be closed due to fire? I mean, what, you gain nothing from that. So even if you feel like you're short on money, go out there and do it the way that you want to do it. And if that means coming back the next year to finish the trail, that's the way to do it. But like Moriah said, do plan on spending more than you initially think and have a cushion. And also, I mentioned in the video, having that supplemental gear maybe purchased ahead of time. Start buying the cold and warm weather kits ahead of time, so that's not something that you have to buy in Lake Tahoe, stuff like that. So yeah, I think it's very valuable to do your hike the way you want to do it and not let money control your hike.
Well, Sam and Moriah, how do we find you guys? We want to watch your YouTubes or follow you on social media.
Yeah, absolutely. On YouTube, it's really easy. It's just Sam and Moriah. If you type PCT in after it, you're guaranteed to find it. The only thing that we have is Instagram, and it's sam.and.moriah. We're getting pretty active over there, and we're still doing hiking relating videos. We've kind of shifted into, we live in an off-grid homestead, so we're kind of doing videos about that right now. But there's going to be plenty of hiking content coming, and we're going to keep sharing with everybody. So yeah,
That's Moriah with an O.
yes.
So everybody, thanks for listening, and I want to thank Sam and Moriah for sharing all this with us.
Yes, you're very welcome. Thank you for having us.
All right, everybody, get outside, have some fun, be safe, and consider your finances if you're going to be out there too. Take Moriah and Sam's advice here, and be safe out there.